Now, here's the problem, Sharon. You and I, we're talking about systemic racism, but apparently, according to a gentleman named Coleman Hughes, there is no such thing as systemic racism. Is that correct? Lewis, you brought this story. Could you talk a little bit more about this guy?
Segue monster!
Yay. I think that was actually Bobby.
Yeah.
Was that you, Bobby? Oh, sorry.
That was Bobby.
Yeah.
I don't do black conservatives.
It's funny that you say that, though, right? Because I've been actually watching a lot of videos from black conservatives because, I've been this sort of anti-racism activist for 2 decades. And it just occurred to me recently that I'd never sort of looked at the conservative perspective from people of color. Not that I agree with a lot of what they're saying, quite frankly, but I think I know for me, I've been guilty of being in the echo chamber, as they say, where you basically never interact with people who think differently from you. You never read their work. You never look at their arguments. And I think that there's a place for debate within the multicultural community. And, it's funny because I feel even taking a centrist position in our community, you're sort of viewed as being on the opposite side, where I feel like there's a lot of benefits to sort of internally debating our issues so we can understand the complexity, even if it's to understand what the argument is in the other camp, so we can be better prepared to sort of understand and respect the nuances of the debate.
I have to disagree, Bobby, because I think a centrist argument is different than an out to left field or out to right field argument. Because I think that to center a debate, it's sort of like when people want to talk about Kanye running for president. And I hate to say this, but it's mostly white people who want to talk about Kanye running for president and how bad he will be and blah, blah, blah. I'm not interested. I don't think that is an intelligent argument. I don't think it's useful. I think it is useful to talk about centrists, but a person who denies systemic racism exists or who denies that slavery exists, like Kanye, is not a centrist argument. That's way out there. And I don't think it's useful within our communities to give a platform to that. Just like I would not give a platform to a homophobic person who's going on and on and on about how lesbian and gays have to be killed. It's not an interesting or an intelligent discussion. That's my feeling.
Can I jump in on this, though? I have a real problem with the notion of left, right, and center. Because it's all based, for me anyways, left, right, and center is determined by self-interest and personal needs, also group needs. So people can be left-wing on one subject and completely right-wing on another. I think what's more important is who are you selling your story to, right? Now, what's the weightlifting comedian guy that was on...
Joe Rogan?
No, black guy. He was on that cop show.
Terry Crews.
Oh, Terry Crews.
Terry Crews.
He's a football player.
I love your description of him, by the way.
I know, I was like...
Really
Mario Joyner?
Yeah.
I guess?
Yeah.
Maybe?
My point is...
Carrot Top.
Yeah.
Andrew Moody?
Shut the fuck up. What I'm trying to say is that Terry Crews is out there for I can listen to Terry Crews because he's still trying to talk to the black community. With a lot of these black centrists, they seem to be talking for a white audience at black activists or black folk that are coming from what white folk perceive as being deep left, but within the black community is simply perceived as, well, duh. So that's my problem with that.
So the argument that I would make, though, is that there is a white audience as well, right? So I'm not saying that we are supposed to curate everything that we say for the white audience, but I think that it's a mistake to exclude that perspective, and I actually think that when you hear, we can call them right-wing, we can call them obtuse arguments that are stupid, because I do agree with you, Sharon, that, you deny the existence of systemic racism. I think it's a really easy argument to refute, but, it's funny because I look at it differently. I think that actually when you make a stupid argument, that makes it easier for us to refute your point quickly. So
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with those arguments being made.
I used to host a show called Counterspin, and one of the things that I respected about Counterspin is that they, and this was after 9/11, is that they refused to bring on the extreme right and the extreme left, because basically it gives you a what's the guy, the talk show guy that always has people beating up, Springer. It basically becomes a Springer show, right? And I think that there's no way to have an intelligent discussion when you're going that far extreme. So that's my only argument with that, is that, you know, media time is so precious and people's time are so precious, and we have so little platforms to actually talk about this and be listened to, that I really push for an intelligent discussion and leave those two extremes out.
Well, I've recently been watching a lot of debates and watching a lot of Black conservatives in America, like Black Republicans, because I'm writing this character who's a Black conservative. And
I'm sorry.
I know. And it's been interesting. It's actually been an interesting experience where some of the Black conservatives, some of the viewpoints, I actually begrudgingly say, okay, well, you've got a point, blah, blah, blah. And like, you know, there's something about the bootstraps argument where I just think, you know, systemic racism really does crush someone's soul. And if you've read, you know, any number of you know, African-American novels in the 1940s and 50s, you realize that systemic racism can just crush your soul and defines who you are. But there is an argument to be made about, well, but you know, at a certain point in time, you have to take responsibility for your actions, though. So fair enough. But at the same time, I can't help but feel that certain Black conservatives are horribly naive, just like horribly.
I don't think they're naive. I think they're profiting. They're profiteers. I don't think and again,
and they justify their profiteering with naive ideology.
Right. Not
but I don't think Colin Powell is naive. I don't think Colin Powell's naive. He's a Republican.
He's
I don't
not.
think.
You know.
I don't.
He's not anymore, but he was. Condoleezza
Yeah.
Rice. I mean, a Republican.
I don't think she's not naive.
I don't think they're naive at all.
I think her views on Russia are naive.
No, you can't say that they're naive. I think that they are motivated by different ideologies, for sure.
Absolutely.
But I wouldn't say that they're naive, and I wouldn't say that they're unintelligent and that they're extreme and they're on the fringes. They are people that I would have an intelligent conversation with about systemic racism.
This is what's interesting for me, though. This gets back to the point of what is an Uncle Tom, right? And it's perspective based. When you look at the history, when you look at the history of people that would be considered deserters of their tribe, and you look at the makeup of any senior management in any corporate organization, all of those people come from people that deserted their tribe. They all come from another version of Uncle Tomery.
You know, and interestingly, like Malcolm X referred to Martin Luther King as an Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always been division within the community of color. So I do think that there's now, I think an Uncle Tom is pretty harsh, and, you know, and I don't think there's truth to that, but it is his perspective. He's relevant. There's a voice there. But, you know, it's funny because I look at the two of them as two of the most influential activists for people of color in the history of civilization, and yet they disagreed vehemently on approach.
Can I say, though, the Italians have a word, mangiake, that all cultures have that term of those, that the crossover artist.